Hey there. The game I'm reviewing today is the absolute finest example of a first-person survival horror game that I've ever played. It provides a singular vision that focuses heavily on making the player feel as vulnerable as possible in a beyond hostile environment. Seriously, no other game will do a better job of scaring the pants right off you than this. However, I will admit there are a couple of titles that can give it a run for its money. However, the inclusion of a combat system and the inability to experience the consequences of death both dial down the horror quite a bit. Instead, Outlast 2 gives a very pure horror experience by forcing you to either run or hide from invincible enemies. And it only provides the player with a single tool, a camcorder, which is primarily used for night vision, to see in the dark. And even then, the constant threat of always worrying about running out of batteries just adds to the tension, instead of making you feel more comfortable. So, needless to say, this game is scary as shit, and I loved every minute of it. Let's get started. Outlast 2 is equal parts haunted house and stealth game. There are also a few chase sections that play out to varying degrees of success. During the game's roughly 5.5-hour campaign, I found a lot of things to appreciate. But foremost is how absolutely gorgeous the visuals are, and I don't say that lightly. This is without a doubt the best looking game I've ever played. And if you happen to be playing on a Nintendo Switch, you might also appreciate that it's the best looking game on the system's entire library, at least currently. Outlast 2 is a truly magnificent visual masterpiece. And yes, I know, some of you are thinking, well, graphics aren't everything. And I agree with that. But in a horror game where immersion, is make or break, the visuals really do help. The textures are crisp as hell. The copious amounts of gore look realistic enough to be frightening. The supernatural effects are really on point.
Break, you diseased cocksucker.
The design of the monsters is pretty chilling. And even the water looks pretty outstanding, especially during the rafting segments. I also found the audio of Outlast 2 to be superb. The soundtrack is evenly split between softer, but still scary ambient tunes that would not sound out of place in a mainstream horror film. And tense chase music consisting mostly of drums and other percussion instruments. Seeing as the entire purpose of this game's soundtrack is to make the player feel uneasy, I would say, by large, it's a huge success. While much of the actual written dialogue is questionable, I found the delivery to always be quite solid. The standout performance, of course, and thankfully, is the player-controlled character named Blake, as you can easily identify the fear, frustration, and other emotions in his voice.
It's too dangerous. You can't.
We can't stay out here. Help me down, please, Blake.
Okay. Jesus, be careful. Fuck! Lynn, you okay?
Likewise, the variety of supporting characters all do a pretty good job of sounding creepy.
I don't need your help in finding the devil's whore and interrupt me. No questions even now, other heretics at chapel.
Insane.
You're him, ain't you? The outsider. No, so they killed you, didn't they?
Or both.
God doesn't love you. Not like I do.
The sound effects themselves all sounded great as well. Whether you were running in a rainstorm made of blood, scurrying around a minecart-infested cave, or just wandering around the woods. The audio always did a fantastic job of making me buy into this terrifying world. The story. Whether you're reading a book, watching a movie, or playing a game, the purpose of the story is always the same: to captivate the viewer and make them crave more until the conclusion. And on this level, Outlast 2 really does succeed. At times, Blake will seamlessly transition into a high school setting, finding himself reliving memories of days past. This acts as a secondary plot and sets up a mystery surrounding a childhood friend named Jessica. I honestly wanted to know what happened to this girl, and just what Blake's connection to her was. And honestly, this subplot, in large, is what kept me interested in what would have otherwise been a pretty straightforward find your kidnapped loved one tale. However, and this is a big however, the problem I had with both the main and subplots is that you're given an unreliable narrator, and this ultimately leaves you feeling that both stories are unresolved. In the present-day main plot, it becomes evident that something is happening to Blake's brain, and by the end, he starts hallucinating pretty hard. So, although you're experiencing events as if they were normal, they become increasingly fantastic and unbelievable. Likewise, the school memories aren't reliable either, because they heavily suggest one outcome about the girl Jessica, but it literally shows something else happening to her. Which leads me to believe that because you're you're experiencing Blake's memories and not the actual past, that, it's unclear and distorted by the character's, time, the passage of time. So, needless to say, when the credits rolled, I was left very unsatisfied. This is the kind of game that would have benefited immensely from a prologue, or even some kind of download content. But unfortunately, we got neither. The gameplay. Outlast 2 is at its best when you're being chased through a series of narrow pathways, frantically searching for the correct route. These moments made me feel genuine fear and excitement. My heart was really pumping. When these routes are clearly marked, and you find the correct place to squeeze through, or door to open, it feels great. Like, you have a tremendous sense of accomplishment. But unfortunately, that isn't always the case. Instead, there were certain chase sections that seemed more like trial and error to me. And this is when the game is at its worst. When you're forced to repeat the same sequence 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 times, just to find the right door to open, before the monster catches you. And this really sucks all the tension and horror out of the game. So it starts to feel more like a chore than something really exciting to do. Thankfully, however, this didn't happen too often, because most of the time the path is pretty obvious, and the gameplay's pretty fair. But when it did happen, it was very immersion-breaking, and left me feeling frustrated more than anything. My verdict. Positive. Scariest game out there. And to its credit, it doesn't rely very heavily on jump scares. Positive. Beautiful graphics and sound. This game looks and sounds great. I can't stress that enough. Positive. Engaging mystery kept me pushing forward. Because of the subplot, I really wanted to know what the deal was with this girl. Positive. Great chase sequences. Not every single time, but the ones that worked really worked. Negative. Bullshit, unsatisfying ending. Negative. Frustrating trial and error sequences. Outlast 2 manages to improve on its predecessor in nearly every way. It stumbles at times, but also it provides near perfect moments of dread and excitement. While not without flaws, especially regarding the stupid ending, it provides an amazingly pure survival horror experience that is sure to give you nightmares long after the credits roll. That's why I'm giving Outlast 2 a final score of 8.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching.